As the president moves to deploy more National Guard troops into U.S. cities he labels as war zones, a federal judge halted two separate attempts by the administration to send California's and Oregon's National Guard into Portland. The White House insists the city is facing riots. What was unlawful with the Oregon National Guard is equally unlawful with the California National Guard. The judge's order wasn't some trivial procedural thing the president could wiggle around like my 14-year-old does when he doesn't like my answers. And as that hearing was happening, the Trump administration activated a third state's National Guard. Texas Governor Greg Abbott released a statement saying he, quote, fully authorized the president to call up 400 Texas Guard members. The plan is to send them into Oregon and also into Chicago, where tensions are rising by the hour. Federal agents launched tear gas at protesters over the weekend. So, a Trump administration official was just caught lying to a federal court and the judge wasn't having it. Immediate consequences followed, fines handed out on the spot, contempt threats issued, and a blistering ruling calling the DOJ's filing a brazen lie that undercuts the very foundations of justice. This is what happens when you think you can mislead federal judges and walk away unscathed. But this administration apparently missed the memo that courts take honesty seriously and will punish officials who attempt to deceive them. The official involved filed declarations claiming there was no National Guard presence in certain Portland operations tied to immigration enforcement. No troops, nothing to notice, just routine activity that supposedly didn't need court oversight. Except it was completely false. Flight records confirmed troop movements. Witness affidavits documented their presence. Over 500 National Guard members were actually on the ground doing exactly what the official insisted wasn't happening. The judge compared the evidence to the false declaration and brought the hammer down. But before we go deeper, real quick, let's be honest. You can't rely on mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to give you real stories, real context, and zero corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Hit the link in the description to sign up. And if you just want to support what we're building, join us and be part of a community that genuinely cares about the truth. Alright, back to the video. What kind of country are we in right now? This raid at this building shows exactly what ICE, CBP, the President, Kristi Noem, and Greg Bovino were trying to do. They want chaos on the ground. They want to manufacture the war zone so they can justify sending in even more troops. Now they're saying they need 300 of Illinois' National Guard. Joining me now in the group chat, Sarah Fisher, CNN senior media analyst and senior media reporter at Axios, Stephen Collinson, CNN politics senior reporter, and Sabrina Rodriguez, national politics reporter at The Washington Post. Thanks for helping me kick off the week. I know that was a lot of jarring footage, but I'm curious about it because Chicago was one of those cities where you saw voting patterns shift after the election. Latino voters drifted toward Trump. Some black voters didn't show up. And now those same people are under. Let's think about what it means when DOJ officials lie to federal courts about what the government is actually doing. The Department of Justice is supposed to be the guardian of the rule of law. They prosecute people for lying to courts and investigators. They're the ones expected to uphold the highest standards of integrity because the entire system depends on trusting what the government tells judges. When DOJ officials file false declarations, they're not just violating rules, they're undermining the foundation of how courts function. Judges can't do their jobs if they can't rely on the information the government provides. This judge made it crystal clear. Lying to the court will not be tolerated, no matter who you are or who you work for. The consequences came fast and were severe, serious enough to terrify anyone who thinks they can play games with the judiciary. The judge hit the official with a $10,000 personal fine not charged to the government, but to the individual who lied. That money comes straight from their pocket. The judge also blocked the official from making future filings without extra verification steps. It's basically putting them on probation. And the court warned that more dishonesty would bring contempt charges, including potential jail time. This wasn't some light slap, this was a federal judge saying, "I know you lied, I saw the evidence, and you will face real consequences." Trump's reaction was predictable. He went on Truth Social, called the ruling a rigged hoax, attacked the judge, and dismissed the entire case as just another example of political persecution. But here's the thing. Calling something a hoax doesn't erase the fines. It doesn't undo the sanctions. It doesn't change the judge's finding that the filing was a brazen lie. Trump can rage online all he wants, but the legal reality stands: the official got caught lying, his DOJ is now under heavier scrutiny, and judges nationwide are noticing the pattern of dishonesty showing up again and again. Stick around, because we're about to break down exactly what happened, how this fits into the broader pattern of deception inside the administration, and what it means when courts finally stop believing what officials say. Alright, let's dig into what happened in the Portland National Guard case and why the judge's reaction was so severe and so revealing about how this administration operates. The case involved immigration enforcement operations in Portland, where advocacy groups argued the administration needed court oversight. The finer legal points matter less than what happened when the administration had to explain what it was actually doing. The DOJ official submitted a declaration, a legally binding sworn statement, claiming there was zero National Guard involvement. No troops deployed. No military participation. Just standard civilian law enforcement activity. Based on that statement, the judge would have seen a completely different factual landscape. That filing shaped the court's understanding and was meant to tilt the ruling in the administration's favor. But the declaration was false. Entirely and provably false. Flight logs showed National Guard aircraft moving personnel into Portland. Witness affidavits described troops on the ground. Records showed more than 500 Guard members deployed. The difference between what the government told the court and what actually happened wasn't a minor mix-up, it was a blatant lie. Once the evidence surfaced, the judge reacted immediately. The court called the filing a brazen lie, unusually sharp wording in a judicial ruling, but totally warranted. The judge didn't accept excuses, didn't treat it as a misunderstanding, and didn't give an administration already known for gamesmanship any benefit of the doubt. Sanctions came swiftly. The $10,000 personal fine, the verification requirements, the contempt warning. The fine coming from the individual's pocket matters because it forces personal accountability. When an agency pays, the cost gets absorbed. When the individual pays, other officials see the risk and reconsider lying. The verification requirement is a professional mark, a public statement from a federal judge that this official's word cannot be trusted. That follows them for their entire career. And the contempt warning? That's the judge saying, next time, jail is on the table. But the most troubling part is how this fits into a bigger pattern. This isn't one isolated lie. This administration has been repeatedly caught misleading courts. Judge William Alsop blasted DOJ lawyers in the federal worker firing case, calling their filings sham declarations. Judge Susan Ilston threatened contempt in the State Department layoff case. In the Comey prosecution, DOJ admitted the grand jury never reviewed the final indictment. At least 12 major cases show similar issues. That's not coincidence. That's strategy. They lie, hope it wins them a ruling, and figure by the time the truth emerges, their goals will already be met. But judges are starting to catch on. This case links directly to other legal failures. The same DOJ lying about National Guard deployments is led by Pam Bondi, who faces accusations of evidence destruction in Epstein-related matters. The same administration whose officials file false declarations is the one whose lawyers admitted in the hush money appeal that Trump committed felonies if immunity doesn't apply. The same pattern shows up in Mark Meadows' testimony that Trump was dishonest about the 2020 election. The DOJ didn't even correct the false filing once the truth was revealed. Ordinarily, lawyers immediately correct the record. Here, they doubled down. That's not an error, that's deliberate. So let's break down what this ruling means going forward. First, when courts stop trusting the administration, the government loses the deference it usually gets. Normally, judges trust government claims, especially about national security or enforcement. But this administration has burned that trust. Now judges demand more evidence, more oversight, more verification, and rule against them more often. The Portland sanctions will be cited in future cases as proof that this DOJ cannot be believed. Second, the personal sanctions warn everyone in the administration: lying can cost you personally. No government shield. No agency bailout. Your own money, your own career on the line. That chills future false filings. Attorneys can now push back, citing this case as the reason they refused to sign questionable statements. Third, Trump calling the ruling a rigged hoax shows open contempt for judicial authority, making it even harder for his administration to regain credibility. Judges read those attacks. They remember. Fourth, this case connects to the entire collapse of credibility surrounding the administration, from financial fraud findings to hush money contradictions to classified documents admissions. When you lie repeatedly, judges, juries, and the public stop believing anything you say. Congress may also step in, since a federal finding of DOJ lying about troop deployments opens the door to subpoenas and oversight. So where does this leave us? A federal judge sanctioned a DOJ official for lying. The judge called it a brazen lie. The administration didn't correct the record. Trump called it rigged. And this sits on top of a dozen other cases showing similar dishonesty. The trust between the administration and the judiciary is evaporating, and without trust, courts can't function normally. The Portland ruling becomes part of the permanent record of judicial rebukes. It will be cited in future cases. It will follow this administration. It will warn officials tempted to lie. Because courts will uncover the truth and they will impose consequences. Keep watching, because the trust breakdown between this administration and the courts is only going to deepen as more cases surface and more lies come to light. The Portland sanctions are important, but they're just the beginning. More cases are pending where credibility is on trial. More declarations may unravel. More judges are losing patience. The consequences for dishonesty are finally arriving. Stay tuned.